Autistics are having a very hard time making friends. And no, it's not because of autism itself. I'll be your host, Sven Sharpen, for today's episode of Sharpen the Narrative. Making friends as an autistic person is extremely difficult, so much that most don't have any friendships at all. And we've been put in a situation where we're too afraid to talk about it. Nobody bothers to help us. I'm probably one of the first people on earth to actually talk about this from the autistic perspective. And I'm going to say right now that autism all by itself does not make relationships this difficult. And to prove that, I have interacted with people myself just fine, and I've been able to make some great in-person relationships. I would not call it perfect, but I'd consider myself extremely blessed to have had the relationships I have. The issue that I and most other autistic people are facing is just a lack of learning how to actually make and maintain relationships, and you combine that with child abuse. So special needs programs always promise children and families that they'll teach kids that struggle with these things how to actually make and maintain relationships. But then, once the kids are in the programs, they'll just do a complete 180 and then indoctrinate the kids with Marxist SEL and severely abuse anyone who doesn't comply. Even special education itself is literally designed so that people like us can't socialize. It's a segregated room away from everyone else that rules totally communist. The rules are all communist. I've seen literal de facto social credit systems. It's all communalist. Everything's about feelings rather than actual fact. And you can't relate to the people in the room. They have completely different traits from you. They treat all of you the same. And the worst part is you can't even go to schools that don't have these programs. For example, when I was 14, I was forced to move schools away from relationships I'd spent years building, and I couldn't see my friends for over a year. This put me in a chronic depression that made me almost transition. But by God's grace, I escaped and I got back with my friends. Even with COVID happening, I was still able to at least make and maintain some relationships. But most other people on the autism spectrum aren't as fortunate, heartbreakingly. If there's one thing that most autistic people secretly long for without actually telling people, it's a best friend that they can hang out with on a regular basis. You know, someone you could spend holidays, birthdays, or weekends with, and to not be lonely. Even just another autistic friend that understands us well is something that we chronically lack. And again, I'd consider myself incredibly blessed just to meet some of my old high school classmates, for example, once a year. But the closest I got to having a real best friend was with a girl named Sammie, whose name is public for a reason I'll get into. So I met Sammie in my sophomore year of high school, and we became good friends very quickly. So much that she even started conversations with me over text, something no other friend of mine has ever done before or since. But tragically, 6 years ago to the week at the height of COVID, she got in a car accident and passed away. And I'm still struggling with that even to this day, especially since September 10th. This first year without Charlie Kirk has felt like a repeat of that experience. So it's just really heartbreaking for me. But another reason we struggle with a lot of relationships is the fact we're in constant therapy for our entire childhoods. I remember being in therapy a lot, and most of it's just completely unnecessary. I get the purpose of therapy, but society should focus on the right therapy based on somebody's specific needs, not just a bunch of garbage. And we should strive to prioritize childhood experience over therapy, even for the children who actually need it. And bullying is another reason that autistic people struggle so much with relationships. And this is largely because of the big pharma and school system having created a culture that punishes exceptionalism or anyone who just doesn't quite fit in with the system. And what I mean is you're basically punished for not fitting in, and the systems themselves are in on all that. Now, I would consider myself blessed. Another grace of God thing is I haven't been bullied all that much somehow. I don't know how. All I can say is it's the grace of God. Only a handful of people tried, but that's a quick tangent over. The abuses we see of autistic kids in programs are absolutely appalling. And it's no wonder autistic kids are so desperate to fit in. They'd even take an objectively bad solution like transgenderism over the status quo. So if you combine all of these factors, that means that autistic people are by far the loneliest people on the planet. And it is literally no surprise that autistic people are so open to really radical ideas like the aforementioned transgenderism and things like communism, fascism, or other radical ideas that would institute radical change. So someone who's hurting a lot will do literally anything to solve their distress, even if it means implementing something that has a legacy of miserable failure and even more abuse. And if we don't fix all of this soon, you end up with Wiser and Kairos. That'll be it for today's episode of Sharpen the Narrative. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you all, and have a great day.